Hey everyone, welcome to Startup Talks. Today's case is Triangulate, a dating startup that bet on what people actually do online instead of what they claim about themselves. Let's get into it. So Triangulate was founded by Unil Nagaraj in 2009 while he was at Harvard Business School. The core idea was a matching engine that would recommend compatible partners based on people's digital footprints, the websites they visit, apps they use, content they consume.
Not what people say about themselves on a profile, but what they actually do online. That's an interesting distinction.
Exactly. The premise was that self-reported data is unreliable. People embellish, they lie, they post a version of themselves that doesn't exist. Behavioral data cuts through that.
And they had three bets running at once. Better matches through behavioral data, users would pay a premium for those matches, and existing platforms like eHarmony or Match would license the technology.
That third one is where I'd raise my hand immediately. Large incumbents licensing from a small startup. That's a very hard model to execute historically.
They're not wrong that the market was ready for disruption. Online dating in 2009 was already big and mature. The self-reporting problem was real. The technology was scalable. On paper, this looks reasonable.
On paper, right. Here's where things start to unravel. Triangulate skipped deep customer discovery and went straight to building. Nagaraj later admitted he didn't spend enough time understanding what users actually needed from online dating.
What did they do instead?
Online surveys, quick experiments, lightweight methods that gave them surface-level signals but didn't reveal real user behavior or motivation. Too few interviews, too many closed questions.
So they were getting answers, just not the right answers.
And the right answers only showed up about 2 years in. What users actually wanted was to meet someone, not to receive algorithmically optimized match suggestions. They made quick, shallow judgments based on photos and basic attributes.
Which is the opposite of what the engine was built to do.
Right. And there was an additional problem. Users were uncomfortable with the idea of their digital activity being analyzed. That's the core product premise, and people didn't want it.
What actually did engage them?
Social and interactive elements. Voting on profile elements, emojis, virtual GIFs, microsignals. Those turned out to be stronger matching signals than the algorithm. The thing that worked was basically the opposite of the thesis.
There was also an early technical experiment that collapsed early on, right?
Yes. Nagaraj tried to build a training dataset by getting 100 volunteers to install a modified version of Rescue Time, a time-tracking app that would capture their digital behavior. The modified app failed to run on most computers. The experiment collapsed before any data was collected.
The team took away, we should use cloud-first architecture next time, which is a lesson, just not the most important lesson available to them.
The more important lesson being, do users actually want this product? That one didn't land yet. Before the first major pivot, Triangulate lost its co-founder Jack Wilson. Wilson handled fundraising and partnerships, two things that turned out to be critical.
What happened?
A disagreement over CEO structure. Wilson wanted a 50-50 co-CEO arrangement. Nagaraj wanted sole CEO for faster decision-making. Wilson left.
And the consequence was immediate?
Investors basically said, come back when you have a signed partnership with a major dating platform. That conditionality became the forcing function for the first pivot.
So the co-founder split didn't just cost them a person, it changed the shape of their funding path.
Exactly, and it accelerated a pivot that might not have been necessary otherwise. Unable to land licensing deals, Triangulate launched its own consumer-facing dating service on Facebook. This was Wings. It used Facebook's social graph to build user profiles.
What was the differentiating feature?
The wingman mechanic. A friend could help a single user by endorsing them, leaving comments on their profile, vouching for them socially. The idea was viral growth through the Facebook platform.
And it got some traction?
About 35,000 users, mostly through tech press coverage and Facebook ads, but the warning signs appeared immediately. Poor retention, viral coefficient below expectations, rising cost per acquisition. Users from locations with no local matches churned fast.
So, same mistake repeated, launched without validating whether this format actually appealed to users.
Within Wings, they also acknowledged that the algorithmic matching wasn't perceived as valuable, and the Wingman feature wasn't driving real engagement. Both got dropped.
So they abandoned the two things that made Wings distinctive.
The product moved towards simpler signals: profile completeness, photo attractiveness, responsiveness, active presence. More practical, stronger direction, but still couldn't reach critical user mass. Dating is a marketplace. Without supply and demand balance, it doesn't work.
And then DateBuzz.
DateBuzz was the second named pivot, launched under board pressure. Users voted on individual profile elements, descriptions, listed interests, badges, before seeing photos. The idea was to shift focus away from appearance, reduce looks, bias.
That actually sounds like it solved a real problem.
It did solve the pain point better than anything they'd built before. Still couldn't reach critical mass. The marketplace problem didn't go away. By February 2011, they had $200K in cash and a burn rate of roughly $50K a month, about 4 months of runway.
And investors weren't willing to bridge them.
No. Investors no longer believed the company could raise a Series A. They attempted an acquisition by a large tech player. That fell through too.
March 2011, 2 years after founding.
Nagaraj closed the company, paid severance to all employees, helped them find new jobs, and returned $120K to seed investors. By startup shutdown standards, that's considered an honorable exit.
Honorable, but still a shutdown.
Still a shutdown. The hosts analyzed 4 candidate causes: unvalidated hypothesis that algorithmic matching based on digital footprint was something users wanted and would pay for; poor market understanding, no one on the team had deep domain expertise in dating behavior; insufficient capital, they needed network effects that required scale; and the too early for the market argument.
I'd dismiss that last one fast. 2009 to 2010 was actually an ideal time to enter online dating.
Both of us would. That's not the cause. The capital argument is interesting, though. With 100 null irons, they could have tested more hypotheses, but whether any would have worked is unknowable.
The real ranking puts unvalidated hypothesis first and market understanding second.
The primary failure was testing solutions before validating problems. They ran through 5 hypotheses in 3 years, a pace that should have taken 3 to 4 months.
Speed of hypothesis testing, not speed of development, is what determines survival.
That's the line right there. Fail fast is only useful if you know what to test, and choosing the right hypotheses requires being deeply immersed in an industry.
Without that domain depth, founders build hypotheses in isolation. They use frameworks and methodologies without real market signal.
And they design experiments that confirm existing beliefs rather than stress test assumptions. Run a Facebook ad, nobody converts, conclude the market doesn't want this, without questioning the targeting, the audience mindset, the offer framing.
There's a structural trap too. To start a company and recruit a team, you need extreme confidence. You have to project certainty and suppress doubt.
And the same overconfidence that enables launch is what prevents rigorous hypothesis testing once momentum builds. Press, team, seed money, ego investment, hitting the brakes becomes psychologically very hard.
The modern advantage is that AI tools now serve as sparring partners for hypothesis validation without the ego risk. You can stress test your own thesis without it feeling like self-doubt.
And large tech companies are now compressing hypothesis cycles to days. The competitive barrier isn't size of team or budget anymore. It's speed of testing. Startups that test 1,000 hypotheses will outlast those that test 10, regardless of capital.
The conditions that killed Triangulate, slow testing cycles, high cost of building MVPs, those are largely obsolete now.
The gap between idea and validated problem is still where companies die. It's just cheaper to close that gap than it used to be.
I think on that optimistic note, we can end.
That's all for today. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode of Startup Talks.